Welcome to Work Now's Humans of Staffing podcast. My name is Sammy Singh, along with my host, TJ Sammy.
Hi, my name is TJ Sammy, the co-founder of Work Now.
Work Now is a leading provider of software for the staffing industry.
Being in the industry for the last 30 years,
not only have we run staffing agencies, but we've been in software in the staffing business for the past 20 to 25 years.
Our focus is, in addition to other aspects of the staffing industry, will be on how emerging technology is impacting the staffing industry.
What we want to learn from this podcast, if you're interested, is how do recruiters do their jobs? What can they do that you can learn from?
How our guests are overcoming those challenges and the opportunities they'll see in the future.
The owners, what challenges do they face? As well as the temps that work in this business and what do they need for this industry to thrive. So the goal of this podcast is learn and understand where it's going, where it's been, and hopefully you get some value out of this podcast. Welcome to another episode of Humans of Staffing. This is Sammy Singh along with TJ Sammy. We are both the co-founders of Work Now, and our guest today is Stu Churchill from PeopleLease. He's the general manager of the staffing division. PeopleLease is not only our partner, but Stu's a great guy, and it's just joy to have him on here. He's a part-time comedian, part-time GM, part-time running a very, very successful company. So Stu, tell us more about yourself, your journey within staffing, how you got here. Rather hear it from you directly versus the legend that, others talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been with PeopleLease almost 20 years. I was actually a client before that. We really got into the staffing piece of it in the beginnings. It was on the transportation side. We had a lot of clients that started staffing, saw a need for drivers and transportation. So they reached out to us as a service option to be able to set that up for them, and they need to be in multiple states. And over the years, that grew and grew and grew, especially in the blue-collar, gray-collar space. So we added more staffing companies on, and pre-COVID, that took off substantially just because of the needs of the workforce, and staffing companies grew substantially all the way across the board. I think that as we grew as a company, that was our strongest vertical and still is where we're growing. And there's a lot of nuances to it and customization that's important. That the clients know that we can customize it to them and to meet their needs and multiple state backgrounds and having all that in place. So we kind of grew that together as a company, and we grow with our clients, and the individual needs of our clients change and what they're looking for and what they want. The clients, Sammy, always come to us at first. It's a work comp play. It really is. They're looking for an affordable work comp solution, and our solution's different because it is pay as you go. There's no deposit when you first get started, and you're paying for the actual employees you have. So you're not buying a stack of a standalone carrier. You're buying a stack that goes along with the amount of employees you have, and that's all you're paying for. And the uniqueness of that, obviously, is we're in multiple states across the United States, and there's different nuances in every state. The laws are different. The payroll laws are different. The work comp laws are different, and how that's handled. So we break that down into territories as well. So we have individualized people that are in the payroll part of this that understand the states that they're in. New York, Illinois, California, they have a lot of laws other states don't have. And that's the main advantage to the client is we have that education, we have that background, and we're going to make sure they're compliant in each one of those states as far as it goes to payroll. But not only that, again, that work comp play is the number one thing that brings us in. After they see that and see how well that works, then they're going to start to see the payroll piece of it. And then we have an HR piece. It's really a back office solution that helps you minimize your costs and minimize your overhead because of what we can offer. So you have an HR person, you have a payroll person that's going to be able to be specialized in your area. You're going to have a claims manager. PeopleLease is a little bit different too, that we have internal claims people that handle the claims as they come in on the work comp. and they're in their regional area, so they know. Having that and having that agreement with our carrier helps us substantially too, because we can close those claims much, much faster. We're always in communication with our clients, so they understand when they have a claim that day one. There's a 24/7 bilingual line they call in on. Once they call in, the claim gets reported to us, to the carrier, and it gets reported out to the client. And they love that because there's that open communication piece. And it cuts down on the amount of time. As soon as it's reported, it cuts down on the amount of time that claim's open. It gets it closed, gets the employee back to work. And that's a big piece to it. But not only on the work comp side, there's so many things that can come up on HR. And we have internal people that work with our clients. They can call, hey, what is, the rule on FMLA, or all the different nuances there. We have that person in place, or persons in place that can work along with the client.
So first step, let's step back on 101 on PEOs, right? Let's break this down into, so you've typically got, everybody wants to go workers' comp. So one is me as a company. I go out and get workers' comp. I find a payroll provider. I'm going to pay a payroll provider like any other service bureau, they call them. Mm-hmm. So they'll be a ASO. So I would give them the right to do deposits on my behalf. Then I have to manage my own claims. I have to do all of that, right? All that hassle is there. And I'm going to have to manage it in different states, the rules, the laws, everything. So as we call it, the golden triangle in staffing is really, it's going to be your workers' comp, it's going to be your funding, and it's going to be the technology you run it on, right? Those are the three-legged stool that runs on. So on PEO, let's start defining the difference between me doing it myself as a staffing company versus giving it to a PEO. So step one, who takes on the liability of the employee and the workers' comp? Let's start kind of breaking that piece apart.
Legally, you look at this as it's a co-employer relationship.
Okay.
So you still have management of your employee. You decide who you hire, who you fire, how much you're going to pay, where you're going to pay, and what benefits you're going to have to offer. So, you look at PEO as it's a back office solution, but it's still a business partnership all the way around. And you still own your business. You still do everything there. We're just going to be there as a co-employer relationship. And they call that a little bit different in each state. But what that's going to provide is now you have someone overseeing everything, making sure your payroll is compliant. The big difference is for you is now you have a business partner, so to speak, that is going to provide all this to you. So yes, you will still do your payroll. You will still put in your hours into our system. Some systems obviously integrate into what we're using. And as that works, it processes out the payroll. It's a weekly payroll cycle. You're going to send in your hours, your employees, what they worked. And as we get that, we're going to process that on our end. And then we invoice you. It's basically a simple wire transfer. And then we pay out all of your employees for you.
So just curious, what would be an ideal staffing agency or type of business that fits into that model for you?
I would say in this day and age that, we specialize in blue collar, gray collar. It is really how we started from day one and how we continue to grow. I'm not saying that in a way that that blue collar, gray collar space, yes, but it doesn't mean that we don't have the white collar too. But in the higher risk industries of blue collar, gray collar, that's really a strong niche for us because we understand their business. We understand what they're doing. There's a ton of nuances in staffing. So in that world, it could be warehouse staffing. The majority of our clients, they're just not going to be in California or Kansas City. They're going to be all over the United States because they're trying to meet the demands of what their clients offer. And so that puts you back into that stage where now I'm going to have to be an expert in Missouri and Illinois and New Jersey, where a PEO situation will be the experts there. We'll make sure you're compliant all the way through. And that's the great piece of the PEO.
So if I'm a staffing agency and I do not have business in California today, and I would like to acquire a client in California, this would be the route to go, the quickest route to go for me as a staffing agency, be part of a PEO program that will allow me to get into California.
And California is a perfect example. It's a litigious state, obviously.
Yep.
You know, clients come to me all the time, especially East Coast, Midwest. So I have a client that's opening a warehouse in California. Well, to a disadvantage, if they're like, well, we're not in California, I'm not able to do that. Well, they could lose the client as a whole. So they want to grow with their clients, and we want to help them grow. So that we don't want them to have any limitations across wherever they want. Their clients need to grow, and they need to grow in the United States. And California is such a different animal. There's different, just even compliance on what needs to be on a paycheck stuff. Just the compliance of work comp, how that works, and what you would have to offer for 401k or benefits or any of those things. They're all there. And we also can, have the benefits piece to that too. And it's compliant for the state that you're going to be in. And that's a big part of it, because we're able to help you grow without limitations.
Do you do co-employment for the entire temp labor staff that I have? Or could I just give you 100 out of the 500 hourly employees?
No. So the way that's set up is it basically follows your EIN for your company.
Okay.
So you would need to have all your employees in with us, because we are going to be filing your 941s, and on the state, you'd run under our SUTA tax or yours, and then we would pay FUTA under ours.
Why is the SUTA different than the FUTA? How does that differ? Why does SUTA always get right for the client? Is it because the state's mandated out of California? Why is that? That's always been a point for me.
Yeah, it's a point for me. You literally have to have a list of what states it was. Like California, we would use the client's SUTA, and we would pay into their actual SUTA account, where, other states, it's going to be the PEO's SUTA, and it is state specific. Each state is different.
Got it. That makes sense. So every state, they can file under you as the employer, but leading back on this question, so if I've got 3 EINs, I've got 1 EIN for my internal employees, I have 1 EIN for my temps in, let's say, some light industrial, and I've got another one maybe for EIN for just, let's say, clerical or something much more professional. I can just carry that one EIN for that purpose, while the other 2 I can keep it in-house. Maybe I keep my internal in-house.
That's another advantage, and the majority of our clients do have multiple EINs, or they're in other areas of business, and they keep it separated for one reason or another. If we have that one of their companies on, it is everything under that EIN. Sometimes ownership and clerical's under a completely different company or subsidy. Those things are all out there. That is not a problem. It's just everything is, to TJ's question, is if that's the EIN that's on with us, all those employees would need to be under our co-employment umbrella, PEO umbrella.
When does the exposure, being co-employers, there must be a division of what you're responsible for, what the employer is responsible for. So what are the areas that the staffing agency as the employer should be careful about, where it is in an EOR situation, it's everything 100% or 99.9% sits on that employer of record, because technically they are 100% of the employer. In a PO, it's a split situation here. Where does it really, what are the things that the agency is responsible or should be cautious about, that they follow the guidelines in order not to expose themselves?
First and foremost is we're going to help them with that, as far as where they don't expose themselves, because the payroll liability is a huge piece, and not having that right can be very, very costly in any state. Some states much more than others. They're going to be responsible for making sure they're, keeping their employees safe, keep them in a good workspace, and then managing anything that falls under that HR, OSHA realm, all that stuff that is there. They're going to need to make sure, especially in staffing, that if they're staffing for a certain industry, that they're putting them into a situation that's compliant, safe, and no exposure anyway, that's a danger to the actual employee. And that's a big piece. And that's a big piece with staffing companies as they vet clients that they do want to bring on, and they don't put their employees into a situation that is, going to cost them down the road. And that's another part of the partnership too, is when a client comes on to us, we underwrite that client for them, and I say that as, okay, what is the industry? Well, if they're not an expert in, let's say food manufacturing. So they're not an expert in food manufacturing. I guarantee you that we've done it or already have it. And so we can go in and say, oh, this type of job, this is the exposure you have. This might be the type of work comp injuries that you could have. Sometimes there's nuances in, say, payroll. So the transportation payroll is all the way across the board. There's situations where drivers get paid by the mile, by the load, hourly or salary. So there's a lot of differences in that type of payroll. But even in just straight staffing, not even transportation staffing, you're having some companies that they need some still paper check, believe it or not. And it's understandable. There's still paper checks out there, which we can do. There's direct deposit, obviously. And then there's pay cards. These are all things that it depends on their demographic, their employees, what they want. Some people just don't want to do a bank account. They don't want it. They want that paper check in hand, or they want a pay card because it's easier for them. And that's all stuff that we can provide.
So having followed, I'll give you, and let's go through these examples, right? What would expose, and because I really want to see it from a staffing agency's point of view, that it's not a free-for-all. It means that if there's a discrimination lawsuit, or that would be the staffing agency's responsibility, right? So if anything occurred, if any type of hiring mismanagement took place, that would really be a staffing agency's liability, not the PEO's. PEO's job is to make sure that the compliance of payroll being done, the workers' comp being in the right place, those are your responsibilities. So I'm assuming your contract is going to have two sets of rules. Hey, you follow your guideline and we're going to follow ours. And that's how we keep this boat rolling.
Well, absolutely. You could look at that as a negative or a positive, but I look at it as a positive, because what we are not doing is direction and control of your business. Yep. We are helping so you can run your business, grow your business, be profitable, get more clients, be in multiple states. We're going to help you do that, all that back office. But the key word there is the direction and control of your day-to-day as a staffing company owner is to run your business and to grow and to keep employees and keep clients and all those retention pieces. But having a PEO can help with retention, obviously with benefits, the payroll options that are out there. But again, keyword, direction and control is always going to fall on you as the staffing company owner. And that's in a good light, because, you're the expert at your business and you want to run your business your way. We're just going to make sure on our back end that you're staying compliant, and we can guide you in those areas. And we have that support for you.
On number one client base that you want today, let's say your aim is, which others shy away from typically, right? Which is going to be transportation and light industrial. Why is that your strength? Not only did you guys start there, what have you done differently that has caused you to stay in that game? Because a lot of people, because of workers' comp, ex-mods, have burnt out or gone out of that realm altogether. Nobody, it's like a pariah, right? As soon as you say it's light industrial, they don't want it. And now you say, oh my God, is it this? And they're like, no way, I'm not the guy. So why has that been your advantage that you continue to run to it?
The biggest piece of that, Sammy, is when I'm meeting a staffing client for the first time, I want to look over what they're staffing, what they're doing, because I want to understand what type of warehouse they're in and what they're doing in that warehouse. Obviously, we use food manufacturing as an example. Well, as a business partner, I should know what lines you're in. Obviously, we're going to write the work comp, so we need to know the codes. The advantage of it is, and what we do differently is we get to understand, let's say someone works on the line processing something. We're going to get to understand every part of that. If it comes down to, they keep having the same type of repetitive injury at one time or another, because we have an internal safety team as well that works with our clients. It's purely there as a, hey, this is what can be your type of exposure, or if they are having the same type of injury in the past, this is what we've looked into, and this is how we've learned to curb this. You can't mitigate everything, but that helps, because we have field people that actually get out and get with our clients, see what they do, help them. We're very much, we've grown substantially over the years, but at the same time, we're still a face-to-face company. So our safety folks, they get out on the road, they work with the clients. Again, it's their direction and control is under them, under the actual clients. We're there to help them because we want to understand their business. We want to know what they're doing, and we want to help them mitigate that risk. And that's what's helped us grow, especially in transportation. Our safety team they're all across the board. We are dealing with human beings. So, a laceration is a laceration, a sprain is a sprain. It's not working with octopuses, so we understand that, and we understand those type of injuries, but it goes beyond that, because we want to understand what the job is, what they're doing, how we can be a better business partner to mitigate that risk. And that's why we have that field safety team. And that's, again, why we have an agreement with our insurance carrier to have internal claims people as well. They get to know our clients. You're assigned one person that's going to be in your region where your company is based. But then again, if it's California and they have one of their clients in New York, then we also have people out in those areas that understand the nuances of how claims are handled in those areas. And that's a key piece. So as we grew and we were in a market, which you say absolutely a lot of people shy away from, 5 years, 6, 7 years ago, people were almost terrified of blue collar, gray collar staffing because of the exposure piece to it. And how are you going to control it? And are you just going to stick them, in any type of situation in any factory? Absolutely not. They're, clients are going to vet that, because they're not going to want to sign up for something or bid on a job that's going to expose them to more risk and cost them more money. That's a key part of this partnership too, is why we want to understand, because when I have a client and they have a work comp claim, I have a work comp claim, because of how it's set up. So I want to close that claim and get the employee back to work just as much as they do. So it's my cost. It's also my mod or X mod, depending where you are. So we want to make sure that we're on top of it the whole time. And clients love that. You think when clients come to me, especially from a standalone situation or even another PEO situation, they're going to tell all their horror stories from claims they had, claims that are litigated, or claims where, they wouldn't provide light duty or a service like light duty, which is basically someone's on work comp and you can set them up with a job. Doesn't have to be with the client. We use 2 external partners that can set them up at a food kitchen, or sorting cans, or folding clothes at a thrift store, whatever the situation might be. 1, it keeps the employees honest. And 2, it gets them back to work quicker, because we're staying within the confines of what their physical restrictions are by their doctor. And then they get back to work much, much quicker.
So which states, if you had to, top 5, right? Top 5, top 3, which are the toughest states to have workers' comp in these fields in light industrial? Which are the top 3 or top 5 that come to mind that are the toughest ones to deal with as an employer and as a PEO, as a staffing agency?
Well, which one do you think I'm going to say first?
Our home state, man.
We expanded into California. It was another salesperson and we grew that and started that in about 2008. And it became a very large piece of the business for PeopleLease. I mean, really, we're spread out everywhere now, but we have a lot of exposure there. California is number 1 because it's very litigious, the litigation, everything that goes on there. And in the comp cases, they're different. You settle basically for the most part, but there is times that it's handled somewhat the same as other states, but California would be number 1. New York has really fallen in line with that as well. And I would say the top three. The rest of the states don't really flag out as bad. Illinois is another state that has really got into a compliance piece, not only on the pay stuff requirements, but just on work comp and work comp claims. Those are the ones, and typically how this happens in not even HR and payroll, but it's California, New York, and eventually you get to me in the Midwest. And when I say that, it can be a compliance and work comp, safety, risk, and then payroll. Those are the three toughest that I would pick, Sammy, out of all of them that are out there. And you know, I say that too, just because of what I see on the litigation side. So you want to protect yourself, and you want to make sure you have a business partner that's well-versed in those states and those areas. And along with that, every state's different, and every state has different compliance rules. Those are the strictest, you know, that I see out there that I work with across the United States. Another thing with clients, though, is we're going to once a year to 4 times a year, whatever it's going to be. But the biggest time of year is whatever goes into new law for the next year. So then, you know, usually right around November, December, we put out a publication to all of our clients saying, hey, I just want you to be aware. We don't make it specific just to them. We do it because they're growing so much or in all these multiple states. We're letting them know this is going to be a new law on X date. You know, California a lot of times makes all their laws up until July, and then they put them into place, you know, once the new year starts. And that's a big compliance piece too that clients love to know. They want to see, they want to know. That's our job. And as it happens throughout the year, which it does, then we're going to communicate that with clients all the way across the board. It could be their state unemployment tax is going to go up, or, you know, there's issues right now with, was it New York and California has a pretty substantial FUTA bill, and FUTA had to go up, you know, substantially.
Yes, it is.
And that's a big piece. And if they don't pay the loans back, then we'll all be paying. So that's, you know, that's a big, just a, hey, this is happening type communication. Most people have seen it and heard about it, but those are things that are out there and they need to know.
In lines of that question, you know, I was curious. Now, you said you've been in the industry for 20 years, right? Plus. What's your view of what's changed and evolved in the PEO industry over the last 20 years, for better or for worse? What has evolved today from 20 years ago?
I think you could say this on staffing too. On the PEO space, when I say what I do, or try to explain it to my two boys, their daddy runs a payroll company. You know, that's yes. Or you say I work for a PEO, and they go, oh, my mom belongs to that. It's like, no, wrong one. So it's a professional employment organization. Does that really have anything to do with what it is we're doing? No, it's an interesting piece where in the Midwest, I truly didn't hear about it or know about it. I would say even 20 years ago. Out in the West and the East, yes, because it's been around for a long time, but it's truly evolved. You know, if I talk about it today in my day-to-day, or, you know, my friends, they get it, they understand it because they see it so much more. And it's not what their mom belongs to. It is, you know, it's out there. There's large companies out there that people are familiar with, obviously, and it's grown so much that people see the value in it. People see that it's a huge growth opportunity and lets them concentrate on their business. And once they're in a PEO, you know, our average retention is unheard of, is 7 to 8 years with clients. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we're face to face. We get to know our clients. You know, I'm a 24/7 person because of the nature of our business. My clients know they can call my cell phone at any time. Sammy can't. I block him after 5 o'clock. TJ, you can't. But no.
In tech, you're available 24/7.
Absolutely. It is. It's interesting to see how far it's come. I think it's great to see that clients see the value in what we have to offer and what we can do for them and how we can help them grow. They don't want to mess with all that. They want to do the back office. I'll give that to my PEO to handle, and I know they're going to handle it and keep me compliant. The growing of the business, direction and control, again, they love that piece and they stay with it. And that's why you see when people get on with the PEO, no matter who it is, they're going to stay because they like everything it has to offer. I would, even say the same of what people would have thought of a staffing company, say even 10 years ago. People think, oh, that's just temporary labor. It's this, it's that. It's not. It's skilled labor. There's people that are welders and manufacturing and, it's nurse case managers and everything that's out there, home health care, those are all pieces that we have a lot of clients that are into. And in this day and age, there's not enough nursing homes for, say, the baby boomer generation, and people would rather stay home. They're more active, and so they have in-home health care. Those things have all grown tremendously over the years, and I think people have a different look, just like they do with PEO with staffing. It's not a bad word, or it's not it's just a temporary type job or whatever, the nuance of what people used to think of that. It's not there anymore. It's completely different. Some of these big, grocery stores and department stores, they're back in, their warehousing and all that. It's ran by staffing companies. A lot of the rental car agencies, it's all across the board.
So, Stu, in looking at not all the evolution in the 20 years, right, have things, especially with benefits, so in a PEO, are they able to carve out the benefits in a way for each staffing agency separately? Because one would be whatever the state wants you to give, right? There's a minimum viable that you got to do. Then number two is that, so then are you able to break to where me as one of the staffing agencies says, I want Kaiser insurance for all my employees, because you guys have a menu of 10 types of, that's kind of how we run internally, right? We're on a PEO as well. And we basically decide at the end of the year, whenever the renewals come in, that, hey, out of these 10, we need to be able to do 2, we're going to offer our employees. Does it work the same way with you? So a little bit of a high-end staffing agency may want to provide separate, different type of benefits. PTO, can that also be, tweaked according to a client's needs?
Absolutely. So therein lies where the customization would be. I'll have a client that Kaiser's a perfect example, right? They're really only in California, and they have their insurance in place with their broker or whoever. They want to stay with that. Absolutely. And we'll still, payroll wise, obviously we'll still do those deductions. It's a pass through, as they're going to pay their carrier, however they have that set up. So they can come with their own health solution. They might already have a 401k in place. They can come with those solutions, but just the same, they can come to us for a customized solution. And we have that. I would say, what's evolved so much over the years is, again, I was saying, these aren't just temp labor. They're skilled labor. They're full-time people that have worked for these staffing companies 10, 12 years and want to stay there, but they need a competitive advantage to retain employees and to get employees, and they need to be able to provide health insurance coverage. But a Kaiser is not going to do real well for you if you're in multiple states. So you need a customized benefit solution, which we can offer MEC plans. And there's many types of plans that are out there. We don't just use one carrier. We're going to customize it to that client to give them the coverage they need for retention, and so their employees are covered, or if it's a compliant issue where they need to have something that they offer. And that has definitely evolved. Obviously, we have the vision and the dental and the 401k, like I said, and those benefits are all out there. Even pet insurance. I don't know, 10 years ago, I would have even thought about something like that until you get a dog and go, oh, I need that. So those things are all out there. But again, they can come with their own plans, and we'll do the deductions and the payroll side of that for them. As I said, it's a pass-through. But staffing is interesting, I would say, in the last 3 years, is the majority of clients come to me and say, I'd love to go with the PEO, I'd love to go with you, but I need a health insurance solution for my employees.
So you do offer, and you offer it to whatever, there's a variety for them to pick from, right? That's where they do. So Stu, talking on that same evolution, we, of course, at least our world is, because of being in California, we've stayed so ahead of compliance, right? Heavily on timekeeping, heavily on ATS. We are always ahead of compliance. What that does is it creates industries which otherwise did not exist. if it was so easy to get workers' comp in California for every field, everybody would have it and every agency would be there. The competitive edge comes because there are barriers and there are guidelines and, barriers that force us to pick the ones who can actually adhere to those, right? So with that, what have you done technology-wise differently in the last 5 years? What has changed? I know there's a certain platform everybody's used for years and years. And one is, what has changed in technology? Second, what you wish would change in the next 2 years, where you would like to see it in the PEO world, so that, it is an advantage for your clients as well as the employees that are there.
The biggest piece, especially in the last 10 years, is the platform that we're currently using for our clients. They love all the reports. We have the full suite. So there's tons of different reports that they can do on their own. Just drop down menu. It's very, very easy. Or we can teach them how to do it or set that up for them in the beginning. Just, here's exactly how this report that you need to run. And especially in staffing, there's a lot of reports that they need because they want to go back and say, okay, I'm going to look at this and I want to look what I actually build. That's a big piece to it, and that's grown a lot. And I know in the different platforms that we've used over the years, as it has evolved, the reporting piece has gotten huge because there's a compliance part to it, and has huge growth potential, and it still does. The piece growing into the future is partnering up with a work now. The timekeeping piece is huge. We don't have that built into ours. It really should, fall on your side, on that side of the software side, because that's a big piece, because that's how all your billing is in the staffing world. And you're going to want to be able to integrate everything that you have, just like we do with you and your software. You want that timekeeping piece built in, the billing piece, invoicing piece, because you have to keep that going. You're not going to have that there for your payroll to pay your employees and to bill your client. So, we're the experts on the payroll side, the work comp side, and that side. But as a full suite, we would partner with a Work Now, because that's how that would work best for us. And that, again, I can't tell you how important the timekeeping and billing piece is, because that's how they get paid. And then in turn, that's how I'm going to get paid, because you're going to turn in those hours.
So talking about the billing piece, does PEO typically just give a rate, or do they give a percentage? How does typically billing work or rates work, so you can compare one PEO from another?
Oh, absolutely. So one thing that we do is, so you're going to come to me, you're a staffing company, and you're saying, this is the work comp codes and the clients that I'm currently staffing. I would like a quote. And so we are very open with our quote. So when you're going to get that quote, we can even do a side-by-side from a competitor to break it down to a T. But you're going to get a quote, and it's based off of, it's going to have everything in it, the work comp rate. Obviously, there's an admin. And then in our quotes, we do 7.65, which is 5. So that's going to be in there. So you'll see a percentage per 100. What exactly you're going to pay. Obviously, when we do a quote, depending on the state, you can't really put the SUTA in there. You can, but the SUTA might be on theirs, what they're reporting, and it might be our SUTA rate. So our quote is very cut and dry. You got admin, work comp, and FICA, and it's going to be a percentage of that 100.
Got it. So I can easily say that if I pay $100, if your quote is 23 or 18, it's going to cost me $18 above that. Are you also staying is there rates that, that work, if it's 1.5 times overtime is a little, how in workers, you never pay workers comp on overtime pay, right? The premium and all that. So those breaks are also defined already. So when I go in, some industries will have a lot of overtime. California, it's very easy to hit very high overtime.
If you're going to have, because of the way we're set up, anyone really, if you're going to have a lot of overtime, then what they do is they set up an overtime rate, because there could be a position that's substantial. Obviously, you're still going to have, an admin to that, but those are broken out differently into a different rate, because it is billed off of that, but you're paying what the actual hour is instead of the time and a half.
So what is it that you're doing for so long? What is it that keeps you from, what are the warning signs that you look for that says, I probably don't want to bring this client or this on? Are there any key things that keep you, that exception that like we get, like TJ and I both, right? Been at this business a long time, staffing especially. It takes us no more than 5 minutes typically to know about a staffing agency, where that's going to lead to. Typically because of how they treat their temps, have what kind of history have they had. There's some red flags. What are the red flags in the PO business that keeps you from saying, I need to look at this client twice, and we need to do 2 layers of, right? 2 layers of investigation.
You know, the first piece always is what their work comp codes are and what their staff, because that can pull out a red flag right away. And we want to make sure that they're in the right code, because there is some bad players out there that'll, again, food manufacturing, and they're putting it as a clerical code, which can't, for thousands of reasons, was not legal. So we look for anybody like that to make sure that, and to help them as well, because they're, hey, I'm going to pick up this, this manufacturing company. Here's what they're saying the code is. We'll say, actually, because those codes can vary, and especially in some states, they could be all the way across the board. Most of the time, we've already staffed that before, or have a client that staffed that before, so we know exactly what the codes are. The codes could be the number one trigger, that we just can't do. Our carrier's not even going to write it, and it's not a type of business that we're interested in. But there's other, pieces too, is, as as we've worked together on, you get clients, a potential client comes to us as a startup. Well, right now I'm running QuickBooks, I don't have a funding company. And I was a salesperson for XYZ, and I think I can do this. I'm going to take all my clients. It's not that easy. And that can be a red flag. But there is people that decide to go out on their own. And, we know they get their resume, their CV. We know what they can do. They did all the right things. They have the software in place. They make sure they got their billing, their timekeeping, the funding. Huge. The first time a startup staffing company gets their invoice, they have sticker shock, because and they could be 30 to 90 days out on receivable. So that's probably the biggest red flags. Obviously, it's always going to be what it is they're staffing, if I can even write it or not. And second of all, there's a lot of startups, because staffing is growing so much. And as we've worked together on some startups before, I want to make sure that all the right things are in place. And that was one of the main reasons of our partnership in the beginning. Because if I see this coming up, or not only that, they're already a staffing company and they want to start a different division or a new entity, so to speak, and they want to get into the blue collar, gray collar space, but they don't want to use the current suite of what they have. They want a different solution and have it completely separate. And that's where our partnership comes into play.
Now, in lines to I know we spoke about, the last 20 years and how things have evolved. Where do you think the industry is heading towards in the next, we can't really go too far out, in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you think things are evolving to?
AI. That we've made a huge investment in that. And I can tell you that people I've talked to on your side, more on the technology side, are very, very impressed before moving in that direction. You can't ignore it. It's a big part of our day to day. Probably everything we're having in this conversation is going to pop up weird things on our Facebook or what, you know what I'm saying? So it's there, it's all around you, but not to grow with that, and not to grow and concentrate on that as a company, as we have, and you've met our internal staff for that. That's where it's heading, and that's where it's going. And you either do or you don't. But if you don't, you're not going to make it. You're not going to stay in this industry. And that's the biggest piece. Technology is always a huge piece, but you have to follow where it's going and what the demands are of the customer. Start asking customers what they're going to want. I wish we could automate this. I wish we could automate that. Artificial intelligence is going to get you there.
And I think for the PEO industry, where the complexity is per client, AI is the perfect use case for those complexities at scale. And so I know that's where at least we're looking at in terms of analytics, in terms of optimization of just your processes, right? I mean, there's automation, and there's automation with some sort of intelligence built into it. And that's where things already are going there. I mean, it's just not, but I think your industry is just perfect, especially the PO component that you just mentioned, because I was just thinking about it. I'm like, so each client has specific benefits. Each client has specific needs for safety, and man, the list goes on and on. How do you manage all that, right? And then how do you monitor and manage it, make sure you're updated consistently, at a very efficient level. And AI is frankly the only way to go at this stage. But let's see. I mean, that's what we're excited about. I know that's what my realm is, and I love hearing the complexity of a problem, because the more complex it is, that's what AI is meant for. Not your specific. I think those minute, repetitive. Hey, update my Google Calendar. That part has been taken care of years ago. It's really what we spoke about, the SUTA. It's really what we spoke about, somebody reaching their FUTA limit, and then now, am I going to be placing them for a job or assignment or not? So there's more to the story in terms of the data that AI can pull out that frankly a human being can. So I'm glad to hear that's what you guys are thinking as well.
That's a huge piece. I think that the AI piece is no different than when Sammy and I, since we're 100, were younger and computers started coming around. And I remember like my grandpa saying, computers are going to replace everything. Well, yeah, they did a lot of it, but jobs, they're still out there, and we still need people to run all this. Some people have that same idea about AI, or it's just not strong enough, because it is all based off of data that's out there. But, you think of a client is able to get on to, say, our website. They log in and go, I have an HR issue with blah, blah, blah in California, and it pulls that out and gives you all that information. It's unlimited to where it can go, but you have to stay ahead of it, and you have to grow with it, and you have to invest in it. And then we've invested a large amount into that as we're growing into that. And as you know, we're concentrating on it heavily.
Same here. I think we've really put majority of our resources towards that. But looking at it, Stu, so now to some of the fun stuff, you are, as you know, you and I are the 80s kids. So let's go with the top 2 bands that are your favorite, or 3. If you can hit us 3 that you would, that we'd see you at, which concert are we going to find you at this summer?
Well, you know which one I wish I was at, but I'm not sure I can make that one work yet. But top band, Duran Duran Fanatic back in the day. And actually the keyboard player married someone about 3 blocks away from my house.
Really? Who, Nick Rhodes?
Yeah. His first wife was from Des Moines, Iowa, where I'm originally from. And I actually was in the department store watching him get eyeliner put on like a freak. Was like, oh my gosh, starstruck. But yeah, I was definitely into the new wave punk rock scene in the 80s, and played in a couple of bands back then. And next would be The Cure. Absolutely love The Cure.
And you're all on the same track. And which is next?
Oh, Spandau Ballet, which plays here in 2 weeks. So
yep, Spandau Ballet. We haven't seen, I've never seen it live, TJ. You've not seen Spandau. So I just saw, I think, Duran Duran about a month and a half ago. Still rock. And Nick Rhodes seemed pretty old now. And for you to be starstruck, you were what, 6'4", 6'5", somewhere there?
6'1", but thanks.
You're huge. You're a very tall guy. And Nick Rhodes must have been, so wow, go talk. It's.
I hope he doesn't watch this. There goes my free tickets. We're just giving him praise. I will tell you, when I went to see him, I've seen him many, many times, but I was blown away. They still sound great. Simon Bond still sings off key, and they love it. That's this niche.
Imagine at this age to be able to still do that. And Cruel World, I was just there 2 weeks ago. Really impressed with, Alison Moyet still keeping it together for Yazoo, which was an absolute, she was so on point. While I'm going to call it out like it is, Go-Go's was a complete disappointment. They couldn't keep it together. So what it is in business and in life and in general, if they stayed true to their art and kept practicing, kept doing. TJ and I saw Brian Adams, wasn't it, TJ? Quite a few years ago, still keeping it together, great voice, healthy. It's a joy. Cure, never been able to watch. I wish we had a chance to watch The Cure. And another one that I missed out on, and I should have called out everybody who was Howard Jones came in not so long ago. Again, someone you would love to watch, and I hope and pray all of them stay alive and thrive so we can watch them in the next few years. So I know music is a big part. Stu, what about sports? What do you play?
I grew up playing hockey, actually. So I played all the way up until, well, I played in a men's league when I first moved to Kansas City in 99, but kept showing up to work with black eyes and cuts on my face. So probably wasn't, but to kind of freak clients out a little bit. So I hung that up. But yeah, professional sports, I obviously watch football. I won't, you can all laugh. I'm a Cowboys fan, but live in Kansas City. So there is that. But hockey is what I watch the most. It's still one of my favorites. But
And you've called Kansas City home for how long?
I moved here in 99.
99. From where? Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa. I also lived in and out of Texas. I was in the Air Force, so trained there and was in and out of there. And then grandfather and my father were both Air Force too. So
Got it. So armed forces. What discipline has that brought into your work? Do you think a lot of it carried over? Is that something like we always think about it, that maybe kids and all of us should have had a mandatory 1 year where they spent in some sort of something serving, right? To serve, maybe not in a dangerous capacity, so it keeps, the parents from getting anxiety. But even if it's not, but that 1 year of discipline or 2 years would be so great for all of them. Do you feel that that was a great learning experience that you came into?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, did it change me? Yes. I mean, I went in right after I graduated from high school, and I was a completely different person when I came back. But you have to grow up very, very fast, and you have to learn to trust and be a part of a team. It's huge. It's very, very beneficial. And as you know, I go to Israel quite a bit, and a lot of my friends and their kids there, it's mandatory service, and I'm all for it because it's even interesting to me to see when they join the IDF as, right out of school is when they come back of what type of person they are and what they become. So I'm all for it. And I think in the business world, it's helped tremendously. I'm in this business today because of being in the military, actually, because how I got into transportation and trucking in the very, very beginning was someone I worked with in security police. And he actually got a job in transportation, and then they were hiring, and he offered me a job, and there it goes. Transportation led into the transportation in the PEO space, and then started transportation staffing. We did that actually at PeopleLease before, well, we were already at PEO, but we had another entity that was doing that at the time. And I ran a company before that for PeopleLease. It was the same thing, but all of those were the kind of the gateway. So every time I think about that or that question, Sammy, it was, I met Brian in the military, and he offered me a job, and here I am. I lied my way through it for 30 years. I'm not sure how, but
Still doing it well, and
I'm trying.
yes, it's a learning. It's a constant learning, right? None of us, the more we know, the less we know, because you realize the world's, every time you think you learn something, the world is 10x more bigger. And then as you learn more, it's 1,000 times bigger. None of us, we know what we know. Yep, we know what we know and all we can do. But anything that we might have missed out on our sides too, our goal was really get to know the PO business so that our customer base, which to us is most dear to us, we really do thrive on our customers succeeding and our temps succeeding. And what AI is doing is giving all that stuff that is a minutia. Let's take care of all the, as they say, all the operational stuff and BS that we spend time on, and actually spend time on talking. So to me, what I love about AI is we can actually not spend time doing, the operational work, those notes and all of that, while we can spend time talking. To me, talking and meeting people is the key. And I'm hoping instead that AI will actually help us do that more. At least the guys who are like us, who are getting into getting a little bit more senior than others. So it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you here, Stu. We not only cherish your friendship, your honesty, you're a straight shooter, and the partnership of PeopleLease that you had to help us do this. And our goal is that our clients benefit, startups benefit, everybody benefits from this, and that we can grow and thrive together.
Absolutely. I think that the number one thing for me is I love to meet new people. I love to learn about new businesses, and I love to learn and grow, and I want to grow with them. And I want that partnership.
Truly appreciate your time. Truly appreciate your time, Stu. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stu.